The whole debate of practice has inspired me to look at practice through a different lens. Obviously, it's important to appreciate the foundations of social practice theory and the multiplicity in ways this perspective has informed a number of different streams of research, from strategy, leadership, learning, institutional theory, maybe even to name but a few. But I think one of the things we have been seriously missing in this debate is the very process by which practice is itself created. And maybe there is another practice there that contributes to creating practice. And that is what I focus on in my research. And that's what I refer to as the practice of practice. Now, to avoid the confusion, let me just try and explain that it is both the process of practicing a practice in the process of forming, performing, and transforming that practice. And an example to illustrate that would be what is typical among musicians or performing artists, whereby every performance of their practice of cello playing, for example, violin playing, is underpinned by the very practicing that has created that performance to the level of perfection, perhaps, that an audience is able to appreciate. Now, that said, what performing artists will tell you is that practice does not make perfect, it makes permanent. And so by looking at practicing as a practice, as a process which allows a practice to be formed, we follow the process of transformation that a practice is underpinned by, which also offers us a very different view from the tendency to understand social practices as institutionalized. So effectively, the practice of practice offers us a lens to appreciate the process by which practices are formed, why they change, why the danger of permanence that practicing also entails may indeed lead to those practices not become best practices, but practices that constantly evolve and change because of the incompleteness that is central in any process of rehearsing. So, practicing as a practice is something that I have taken as a topic to focus a lot closer my attention to, and a multi-professional project that I have been looking at the approach by which doctors, pilots, performing artists, athletes too, perform their practices, how practicing is an integral part of that process. Maybe the last thing that merits being said about practicing is that a fundamental element that we see as central to that practice is learning. And although learning has been appreciated both as a practice, but also as a way of expressing a practice given the alignment of knowledge and action in the process of performing a practice, I think the kind of learning that we look for in practicing is what we call learning in crisis.